Decade Duels, Jose, Norb, where we take a look back and compare MVP races, MVP awards for past years. And the year that we picked this year was 1993, which was a special year because, of course, this beautiful self was born in 1993. Fun times. But yes, we take a look at the 1993 American League and National League MVP voting. Of course, we split the duties. I took the American League. Norb took the National League. So, Norb, if you want to start us off with the National League, and then we'll proceed from there.
Certainly. It was a great year for sure. 1993. The NL MVP winner of that year was outfielder Barry Bonds of the San Francisco Giants. It was his first year, actually, with the San Francisco Giants when he signed a then 6-year deal worth $43.75 million. That was the largest deal back in 1993. That's incredible. That would be totaling about $77 million in today's dollars. He was coming off a great season with his former team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, when they reached the 1992 NLCS and lost to the Atlanta Braves in 7 games. Bonds had won the same MVP award in 1990 and that playoff year also in 1992. However, his treatment by the media and the fans in the Steel City upon his departure did not go so well. With moving to the San Francisco Giants, though, it was a fresh start for him in the Bay Area. And it was the same Barry Bonds that had put up great numbers, again, hitting .336, led the league in home runs with 46, and RBIs with 123, 129 runs, 181 hits, and 126 walks. He also led in some of the percentages, the OPS, with 1,136, slugging with 677, and a 458 on base. The Giants just finished one game short of the powerhouse Atlanta Braves for the National League West Division title that year. The MVP runner-up in the National League that year was outfielder Lenny Dykstra of the Philadelphia Phillies. Dykstra, whom in the previous 2 seasons was marred by a lot of injuries, only playing in 145 out of 324 games in the 1991 and 92 seasons. However, in 1993, he finally turned things around and had a pretty good year to show for, as he hit 305, 19 home runs, and 66 RBIs. He led the league in walks with 129, runs with 143, and hits with 194. An OPS of 902, slugging with 482, and an on-base of 420. The Phillies, after several years of rebuilding, finally made it to the postseason in 1993, beating out the Montreal Expos by 3 games to win the NL East Division title. The Phillies went on to beat the Atlanta Braves in the National League Championship, but lost to the eventual World Series champion Toronto Blue Jays in the Fall Classic. And today is actually the actual anniversary of that famous home run by Joe Carter. Incredible moment in Canadian sports history for sure. To summarize, definitely a fair for me for this one. The MVP vote, even though it was almost unanimous for Barry Bonds, was pretty close. You had 2 players who finished first and second, and also seek claim to lead the league in some of the major offensive categories. And Bonds led in some of the powerful categories at the time, in home runs and RBIs and slugging. Dykstra led in some of the heart and hustle categories in runs and hits. Unfortunately, despite 1993 being the comeback year for Lenny Dykstra, was overlooked for the award, earning only 4 first-place votes as opposed to Bonds' 24 first-place votes. Both very deserving of the award nonetheless. However, since Barry Bonds was front-page news in the offseason, signing that massive contract in 1993, and coming off a terrific MVP year with the Pirates, added more reason for him to win the MVP award again in 1993.
Yeah, and I think another note to add on there, just before we drop out to the American League, Lenny Dykstra was actually, he's on paper, on record, saying, he should have won that 1993 MVP, which I believe it was back in 2014 when he said that. But I mean, when you compare it to Barry Bonds, like of all people, obviously I know Barry Bonds is a somewhat tainted name now today, but I mean, like he doubled he doubled his home run total, doubled his RBI total. It just felt like there was no. It felt like it was clear for Barry Bonds, and I mean, you could argue it could have been unanimous for Bonds and the Giants. Obviously, the deal, was one thing, but again, he was just such a dominant player in the early '90s. Obviously, is one of the players where you kind of makes you wonder if he should have won a ring or not. Probably, but yeah, I mean, for Dykstra to say that it's interesting. I'm like, I get it, but he even in a shorter amount of games, Bond still crushed the heck. Sorry, even in less games, I should say less games than Dykstra, Bond still crushed the crushed his numbers in batting. So it's like, thanks for coming, but I'm sorry, but it's tough. I get it. You want to win, you want to be MVP. I'll jump over to the American League now. American League 1993, like you said, a big year for the Toronto Blue Jays. In the top 15, if I want to say top 15, you had 4 Toronto Blue Jays in there. There was such a dominant force on offense. Wamco being really big, and Paul Molitor coming in second with batting 332, 402, 509, 22 home runs, 111 RBIs, 22 stolen bases. I mean, it's no Roberto Alomar's 55, but it's still pretty impressive for a guy, who's coming off the Brewers, who was desperate for a ring at the time, before Joe Carter did what he did. But like it said, he put up the numbers, but it was nowhere close to like voting at the start, who ended up being Frank Thomas from the Chicago White Sox, the first of 4 straight MVPs. If you didn't think he didn't deserve his Hall of Fame status, he obviously was an All-Star in '93, but Frank Thomas, just unbelievable. 317, 426, 607 slashing, 41 home runs. 41. He didn't even lead the league with 41 home runs, 128 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 112 walks. I mean, like, the guy got on base. The guy was just dominant. And of course, everybody remembers Frank Thomas for his power. Of course, Frank Thomas met the Toronto Blue Jays in the 1993 American League Championship Series, which, of course, the Blue Jays won. We ended up going on to the World Series and winning it against the Phillies. But I have to say, I'm a little bit surprised at the unanimous decision, just because, I mean, if you want to look at it strictly from a batting perspective, you could argue that Paul Molitor kind of deserved more votes in a sense. Heck, you could even say John Olerud, the Blue Jays catcher, he got about 51% of the votes. No first place, of course. But again, like 363, 473, 599. Olerud crushed it in his prime with the Toronto Blue Jays. A huge reason why the Blue Jays went back to back. But again, like it's like the MVP for the most part tends to focus on consistency and power from what I've seen. And even today, it still feels like they do, which is why Frank Thomas got the unanimous decision. Again, I was surprised that Frank Thomas got unanimous. And, even though I think at the end of the day, one of the biggest stats, and I think even, something that you could have brought up as well was, WAR, which is a stat that wasn't followed as much back compared to we know today, because WAR is so crucial in stats. Like everybody has like their batting averages, their home runs, but one of the first questions that people ask, what's their WAR? What's their wins above replacement? Frank Thomas 6.2, Paul Molitor 5.6. So clearly, Frank Thomas was way more valuable to the Chicago White Sox than Paul Molitor was to the Toronto Blue Jays. And again, rightfully so. Like he was a guy that you could rely on to get runs, and a guy that that can crush it. His OPS was 1,033. Again, like just over the top, over the moon. And for the record, Barry Bonds 9.9 WAR, Lenny Dykstra 6.6. So Lenny Dykstra still needs another reason why Barry Bonds won MVP that year. Look at that stat. But again, like, I mean, I think Paul Molitor deserved a few first place votes. I mean, again, like, with other people in the American League, Juan Gonzalez of the Rangers, Ken Griffey Jr. Of the Mariners, Roberto Alomar, so many strong names in there that, looking back, they were just dominant forces. Of course, some of those ended up winning MVP, like Ken Griffey Jr. Of course, who doesn't love the kid? Well, I mean, I guess if you're a fan of any other team in the American League West, probably not. But I think at the end of the day, it was deserving. Frank Thomas, I think, of the MVP award. I absolutely agree that he probably should have won MVP. Again, just on maybe, let's say, home runs alone, if you want to focus on just that. Not that it should be the sole focus, but again, valuable to the team. I just thought that people like Molitor, Olerud, heck, maybe even Ken Griffey just deserved at least maybe a first place vote or two.
Yeah, certainly a lot of contenders out there in the American League, and when you look at the superstar list of Roberto Alomar, Joe Carter, Paul Molitor, Ken Griffey Jr., they were all deserving of the MVP honor for sure. Anyone could have won that, definitely. In the American League side, there's so much showcasing in those in that league, and the hitting and the slugging percentages has probably went off the roof that year. The Toronto Blue Jays had a lot of success with their three major hitters in Molitor, Olerud, and Alomar, and also and the White Sox, the big hurt Frank Thomas. I thought that he really deserved that award because with the offensive prowess that he has, and the power that he has, and driving the White Sox, literally one of the carriers of the White Sox in the postseason with Robin Ventura and Ozzie Guillen and those guys there in the South Side. Truly, Frank Thomas really deserved that. It was only one of those postseasons that they appeared to in the 20th century. Late in the 20th century. They only had like a few postseason appearances in that time. So definitely a lot of players deserving in the American League for sure of that MVP award.
I just want to correct myself. I said John Olerud was a catcher. Clearly wasn't. He was a first baseman. I completely messed that up. I messed it up. I'm like, going, that doesn't sound right there. Speaking off the cuff, people, that's great. But I mean, I will end up on this thought. I mean, like John Olerud again, more valuable than Frank Thomas. 7.8 WAR. The more walks than Frank Thomas. The way better on base percentage. But at the end of the day, it just goes to show you the power is everything when it comes to baseball.
Yeah, and imagine, with Alomar and with Molitor and with Frank Thomas all making the Hall of Fame, like it clearly showed that 1993 was one of those best hitting years in the American League for sure.
And it belonged to the Blue Jays.
It sure did.